I swept that hangar for years before I understood what I was actually doing. Tarn's End was built into the bones of something older than any of us had words for. A half-buried dock complex the first settlers found, already standing when they broke ground for the wheat fields. Walls grown over with root and lichen. Carvings nobody could read, running floor to ceiling in a script the early surveyors gave up trying to translate. The colony grew up around it the way grass grows up around a fallen log, not out of reverence so much as practicality. By the time I was born, the dock was just the dock, a landmark, somewhere the school children got dared to go. My grandmother called it tending the dock, like it was a chore no different from turning the soil or mending a fence line, and that's how she taught me, the summer I turned 12, walking the cracked apron of Tarn's End with a willow broom twice my height. The still stone stood at the far end of it the whole time, the way it had stood for longer than anyone in the valley could account for. Arms crossed, head bowed, one fist closed against its own chest, like it was holding something it had decided never to let go of. Nobody worried about it. Children dared each other to touch its boots. Scholars came twice a decade, measured it, photographed the carvings down its spine, and left without learning anything that changed how the rest of us lived. I kept tending, cleared the channel that ran under its feet, an old irrigation cut, stone-lined, that fed nothing anymore, but that my grandmother had always kept clear anyway, because that's what you do for a thing that gave water once. Pulled the choking grass off the threshold flowers, the pale star blooms that only grew in that one strip of soil along the statue's base, and nowhere else in the valley, not for any reason anyone had ever bothered to find. I did it because she did it, and she did it because her mother did, back as far as anyone in my family kept count, and none of us ever asked why past the first generation that could remember asking. Doran and Wren came with me most days, less out of duty than boredom, and the fact that the three of us had been inseparable since we were small enough to ride in the same cart. Doran liked to climb on things he wasn't supposed to climb on. Wren liked to talk to things that couldn't talk back, including the still stone, in a running commentary she kept up out of pure nervous habit, naming it, scolding it for standing in the way of her broom, asking it once, half serious, whether it got bored. Between the two of them, I did more correcting than working most days, and I didn't mind it. It made the long afternoons shorter, and there was a comfort in it I never thought to examine. 3 sets of hands doing slow, unglamorous work in the shadow of something none of us understood, and had all, without ever discussing it, decided not to be afraid of. It was Doran's fault, in the end, the way it was usually Doran's fault. He was up on the statue's base, walking the carved ledge along its boots, the way he always did, despite me telling him every single time not to, when his heel caught a seam in the stone he'd walked over 100 times before without it ever giving. The slab dropped an inch under him with a sound like a held breath finally let out. He yelped and went down hard on his backside, more startled than hurt, and Wren laughed so hard she had to sit down in the dirt, and I was already moving toward him with my heart going too fast to feel calm about any of it. That was when the channel under our feet began to glow. Not bright, not loud, just a thread of warm gold light, the color of late sun through wheat, threading up through the old stone-lined cut I'd cleared 1,000 times, without once asking what it was actually for. It moved the way water moves when it's looking for the lowest ground, except it was moving uphill, straight toward the statue's feet, following the exact path my broom had worn smooth over 14 years. Doran stopped laughing. Wren stopped talking. I did the only thing I knew how to do in that hangar, which was keep my hands moving. I knelt and cleared the last choke of grass from the threshold flowers, same as always, because some habits don't stop for fear, and because some part of me that I didn't have words for yet understood that stopping now would be worse than whatever was coming. The light reached the statue's base and climbed. It found the seams in the breastplate first, hairline cracks I'd dusted past my whole life, and never once seen as anything but weathering. They opened like a held breath of their own, and the gold ran into them and along them, branching the way roots branch, spreading up across the shoulders, and down the long arms, until the whole towering shape of it was threaded through with light, the color of harvest. The closed fist against its chest, the one detail every carving, every scholar's sketch, every joke the local children made, had fixed on for generations, began, slowly, to open. Ren had gone very still beside me. Somewhere behind us, I heard other voices gathering, a few of the old dig crew, who still came out from Tarn's End on slow afternoons, drawn by the light the way moths are drawn to anything that breaks a long dark pattern. I heard someone say my grandmother's name, low, like a question. Nobody moved to run. I want to say that was courage. Mostly, it was that none of us could look away. The fingers came open one at a time, stiff as a hand that has held the same shape since before memory. The head, bowed for longer than the valley had names for, tilted down, not lifted, not thrown back in some grand awakening, just tilted, the way a person tilts their head to actually look at something small standing close. It looked at me. I don't know how I knew that, since it had no eyes I could see, no visor catching light, nothing I could point to and call a gaze. I knew it the way you know someone has noticed you in a crowded room before you've turned to check. The gold light steadied, settling into something less like fire and more like held breath, and the great stone head stayed tilted down toward the broom, still in my hand, and the cleared flowers at my knees, and the channel I had kept open for 14 years, without ever once being told what it was for. When it spoke, the voice didn't come from a mouth. It came up through the stone under my knees, through the water-cut channel, through 14 years of swept paths, low and slow and entirely without anger. Steady hands crowned one. Nothing else. No flourish, no second line to soften it or explain it. The light held a moment longer, warm and patient, and then began to ease back down into the seams it had come from, not vanishing so much as settling, like a held breath finally let all the way out. I stayed on my knees a long time after that, long enough for Ren to find her voice again and say my name twice before I answered, long enough for the old dig crew to start arguing quietly among themselves about words like accord and warden line, words my grandmother had never once used in front of me, though I understood now, looking at the cleared channel and the star blooms and the broom, worn smooth at the handle from her grip before mine, that she must have known exactly what she was raising me toward, and chosen, deliberately, not to say it. Doran helped me up. He didn't make a joke of it, which told me more than anything else could have. It took weeks before any of it made real sense, and even then, only in pieces. Half-translated fragments the dig crew pulled off the carvings, once they finally had a reason to try harder, talk of an old order that had kept the dock running for travelers long since gone to dust, of a covenant that didn't pass by blood the way the old stories always claimed crowns did, but by who kept showing up, who kept the channel clear, who tended what nobody made them tend, because someone before them had done the same and it had never occurred to them to stop. I don't carry a crown. There isn't one, as far as any of us have found, and I'm not sure I'd want it. What I carry is a channel that still needs clearing, flowers that still need tending, and two friends who, 3 days later, picked up brooms of their own, without being asked, and have not once put them down since. We don't talk about it much. We don't need to. Some mornings I catch Ren scolding the stillstone again under her breath, out of habit more than fear now, and some mornings Doran still climbs where he shouldn't, though he's learned, at least, to test the stone first. The still stone has not moved again, not the way it moved that afternoon. It doesn't need to. It said what it had been waiting 4,000 years to say, and it said it to a farmhand with dirt under her nails and two friends laughing in the dust behind her, because that, in the end, was the only inheritance that had ever actually been kept. Not a throne, not a name, just the plain, unbroken habit of showing up.